Marcus Wellington stood in front of the floor-to-ceiling windows of his penthouse office on the 45th floor, looking down at the city below. Cars moved like tiny ants through the streets of downtown Chicago. People rushed to their jobs, completely unaware that the man watching them from above controlled half the commercial real estate in the city. At 52 years old, Marcus had built an empire worth over $3 billion. His company, Wellington Properties, owned shopping malls, office buildings, and luxury apartment complexes across 15 states. He adjusted his silk tie and checked his Rolex. Another day, another dozen meetings. His assistant had scheduled back-to-back appointments from 9 in the morning until 7 at night. Marcus thrived on this schedule. Work was his life, his passion, and his escape from everything else that had gone wrong over the years. His phone buzzed with a text from his assistant, Jennifer. "Mr. Wellington, your 9 o'clock is here. The representatives from the Chicago Housing Authority." Marcus sighed. He hated these meetings. The city was always trying to pressure him into providing affordable housing in his developments. They didn't understand business. They didn't understand that profit margins mattered. If he started giving away apartments at reduced rates, his investors would revolt. The stock price would drop. The board would question his leadership. "Send them in," he typed back, settling into his leather chair that cost more than most people's cars. 3 people entered his office. 2 were middle-aged bureaucrats in cheap suits, carrying folders stuffed with papers. But it was the third person who caught his attention. A young black girl, no more than 16 or 17 years old, wearing a simple blue dress and white sneakers. Her hair was pulled back in a neat ponytail, and she carried a worn backpack over one shoulder. She looked completely out of place among the official delegation. "Mr. Wellington, I'm Richard Torres from the Housing Authority," the older man began, extending his hand. "This is my colleague, Susan Ramirez, and this young lady is Keisha Johnson. She's joining us today as a representative of the families affected by your proposed development on South Harper Avenue." Marcus shook hands mechanically, barely looking at them. "Please sit down. I have exactly 30 minutes. They settled into the chairs across from his massive desk. Marcus noticed that Keisha sat very still, her hands folded in her lap, her eyes fixed on him with an intensity that made him slightly uncomfortable. Most people were intimidated by him. This girl seemed to be studying him like a specimen under a microscope. Richard Torres launched into his presentation. The city wanted Marcus to include at least 30% affordable housing units in his new South Harper development. The neighborhood was being gentrified rapidly, and longtime residents were being displaced. Families who had lived there for generations couldn't afford the rising rents. Marcus had heard it all before. He responded with his usual arguments. Market rates reflected demand. He couldn't force property owners to charge less than market value. His investors expected returns. If the city wanted affordable housing, they should build it themselves with taxpayer money. "Mr. Wellington," Susan Ramirez interjected, "we're talking about families. Real people. Children who will have to leave their schools, their friends, their communities." "I understand that," Marcus said, his tone clipped and professional. "But I'm running a business, not a charity. Perhaps we can discuss some sort of tax incentive structure that would make this feasible." "We've offered tax incentives," Richard said, frustration creeping into his voice. "You've rejected every proposal." "Because none of them make financial sense," Marcus countered. "I have a responsibility to my shareholders." Throughout this exchange, Keisha remained silent. She didn't pull out any papers. She didn't nod along with her colleagues. She just watched Marcus with those intense, dark eyes. Finally, Richard Torres stood up. "I can see we're not going to reach an agreement today. But, Mr. Wellington, I hope you'll reconsider. These are real lives we're discussing." Marcus stood as well, ready to usher them out. He had another meeting in 10 minutes. But then, Keisha spoke for the first time. "Mr. Wellington, may I give you something?" Her voice was soft, but clear. There was no tremor of nervousness, no deference in her tone. She reached into her backpack and pulled out a plain white envelope. Marcus hesitated. "What is it?" "A letter," Keisha said simply. "I think you should read it. In private." Richard Torres looked confused. "Keisha, what letter? We didn't discuss this." "It's personal," Keisha said, still looking at Marcus. "It's something Mr. Wellington needs to see. Something that will help him understand." Marcus felt a strange flutter in his chest. Something about the way she was looking at him, about the weight of that envelope in her hand, made him uneasy. "Young lady, I don't have time for, please," Keisha interrupted, stepping forward and placing the envelope on his desk. "Just read it. After we leave. I promise it's important. You're in big trouble if you don't." The way she said those words, "you're in big trouble," sent a chill down his spine. Not threatening, exactly, but prophetic. Like she knew something he didn't. Richard Torres put a hand on Keisha's shoulder. "I apologize, Mr. Wellington. This wasn't part of our agenda." "It's fine," Marcus heard himself say, even though he wanted to throw the envelope in the trash. "I'll look at it." After they left, Marcus stood alone in his office, staring at the white envelope on his desk. It had no writing on the outside, no address, no name. Just a plain, sealed envelope. Something about it felt dangerous. He had an instinct, developed over decades in business, for sensing when something could disrupt his carefully controlled world. He picked up the envelope, feeling its weight. There was definitely something inside, several pages by the feel of it. Marcus walked back to his window, looking out at the city. He should throw it away. He should call security and make sure that girl never got into his building again. He should focus on his next meeting, his next deal, his next conquest. Instead, he broke the seal and pulled out the papers inside. The first thing he saw was a photograph. It showed a young woman, maybe 25 years old, with warm brown skin and a bright smile. She was sitting on a park bench, laughing at something off camera. Marcus felt his breath catch in his throat. He knew that face. He knew that smile. His hands started to tremble as he looked at the second page. It was a handwritten letter, the ink slightly faded with age. The handwriting was feminine, flowing, with little hearts dotting the eyes. "My dearest Marcus," it began. Marcus sank into his chair, his legs suddenly weak. He knew who had written this letter. He knew before he read another word. The memories came flooding back, memories he had buried for 27 years. "If you're reading this, then something has happened to me. I hope I'm wrong. I hope I lived long enough to tell you all of this in person. But I've been sick for a while now, and I have to face the possibility that I won't make it. There's something you need to know. Something I should have told you a long time ago, but I was scared. I was young and stupid and scared of what you'd say, what you'd do, how it would change both our lives." Marcus's vision blurred. His chest felt tight. He forced himself to keep reading. "That summer we spent together was the best time of my life. I know you were just taking a break from your fancy college, just slumming it with the locals in your father's beach house. I know I was just the girl who worked at the ice cream shop. But what we had was real, Marcus. At least it was real to me. When you left to go back to school, you promised you'd call. You promised we'd figure out a way to make it work. But you never called. You never wrote. You just disappeared back into your world. And I was left behind in mine." Marcus closed his eyes, overwhelmed by guilt and grief. Her name was Angela. Angela Johnson. She had worked at Sweet Treats Ice Cream Parlor in Cape May, New Jersey, where his father owned a summer house. Marcus had been 25, just finished with his MBA, taking one last carefree summer before joining his father's company. Angela had been 19, working 2 jobs to save money for community college. They had fallen in love that summer. Or at least, Marcus had thought it was love at the time. She was beautiful and kind and funny. She made him laugh. She made him forget about the pressure of living up to his father's expectations. When he was with her, he could just be Marcus, not Marcus Wellington III, heir to a real estate fortune. But when summer ended, reality had crashed back in. His father had been furious when he found out Marcus was dating the help. He had given Marcus an ultimatum: end it with the girl and come work for the company, or be cut off completely. At 25, Marcus had thought he was being practical, mature. He had a future to think about. Angela was a sweet girl, but she didn't fit into his world. She would never be accepted by his family, his friends, his business associates. So he had left. He had promised to call, but he never did. After a few weeks, he convinced himself it had just been a summer fling. Angela would move on. He would move on. It was for the best. He continued reading, tears now streaming down his face. 2 months after you left, I found out I was pregnant. I tried to contact you, Marcus. I called your father's house. I wrote letters, but they were all returned or ignored. I think your family knew and didn't want you to know. Eventually, I gave up. I had to accept that I was going to do this alone. On March 15th, I gave birth to a beautiful baby girl. I named her Keisha Marie Johnson. She has your eyes, Marcus. She has your smile. She's smart like you, determined like you. She's the best thing that ever happened to me. Marcus put the letter down, unable to read more for a moment. Keisha, that girl who had just stood in his office. That girl he had barely looked at, barely acknowledged. His daughter. He had a daughter. The realization hit him like a physical blow. After several minutes, he picked up the letter again with shaking hands. I worked hard to give Keisha a good life. I finished my degree while working full-time and raising her. I got a job as a teacher. We didn't have much, but we had each other, and we were happy. I wanted to contact you so many times over the years. I thought about it every time Keisha asked about her father. But I was scared. Scared you'd reject her like you rejected me. Scared you'd try to take her away from me. Scared of disrupting the life she knew. So I kept your secret. I told her that her father was someone I had loved, but who wasn't able to be in our lives. I never spoke badly of you, Marcus. I wanted her to be able to form her own opinions if she ever met you. Marcus thought about all those years. While he was building his empire, buying buildings, making deals, accumulating wealth, he had a daughter growing up without a father. A daughter who needed him. A daughter he never knew existed. Last year, I was diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer. The doctors say I have maybe 6 months. I've been fighting so hard. But I'm tired, Marcus. I'm so tired. Keisha is 16 now. She's smart and strong and brave. But she's going to need help. She's going to need someone when I'm gone. That's why I'm writing this letter. I'm asking you, begging you, to be there for her. She knows about you now. I've told her everything. She's angry at you, hurt that you were never there. But she's also curious. She wants to know you. She needs to know you. Please, Marcus, please don't let her go through this alone. Don't let her become another statistic, another fatherless child struggling to survive. You have so much. You could change her life. You could give her opportunities one never could. But more than that, you could give her a father. You could give her family. That's all I'm asking. Just give her a chance. Give yourself a chance to know her. The letter was signed simply, with love, always, Angela. Marcus sat in stunned silence. The papers fell from his hands, scattering across his desk. Angela was dead, or dying, and he had a 16-year-old daughter who had just stood in his office, looking at him with eyes that now he realized were mirrors of his own. Keisha had come here knowing who he was, knowing he was her father, watching him dismiss people like her as if they didn't matter. You're in big trouble. That's what she had said. And she was right. He was in trouble. The worst kind of trouble. The kind that couldn't be fixed with money or lawyers or business deals. His phone buzzed with another text from Jennifer. Mr. Wellington, your next appointment is waiting. Marcus ignored it. For the first time in decades, business didn't matter. Money didn't matter. His carefully constructed life was crumbling around him. And all he could think about was a young woman with a bright smile who had loved him once. And the daughter they had created together, a daughter who had grown up without him. He picked up his phone with trembling fingers and dialed Jennifer. Cancel all my meetings for today and find out everything you can about Angela Johnson. She lived in Cape May, New Jersey. She was a teacher. And her daughter, Keisha Johnson. I need addresses, phone numbers, everything. Sir, is everything all right? Jennifer asked, concern evident in her voice. No, Marcus said honestly. Everything is very far from all right.
What does it
But
say?
I'm going to fix it.
It's bad news.
I have to fix it. He hung up and looked at the photograph again. Angela looked happy in that picture. When had it been taken? Was she already sick? Had she known she was dying? Had she been afraid? Had she been alone? The questions tormented him. But the biggest question was what he was going to do now. Keisha had given him this letter for a reason. She wanted something from him. She needed something from him. And he owed her. God, did he owe her? He owed her 16 years of birthdays, of school plays, of scraped knees, and bad dreams, and all the moments a father should be there for his daughter. Marcus stood and walked to his window one more time. The city looked different now. Those tiny people rushing below, they all had stories. They all had families, struggles, dreams. For too long, he had forgotten that. He had looked at people as statistics, as profit margins, as obstacles to his success. But Keisha Johnson wasn't a statistic. She was his daughter. And Angela Johnson, the woman he had loved and abandoned, had spent her last months trying to make sure her daughter would be okay, trying to reach out to the man who had walked away from them both. He thought about the South Harper development, about all the families that would be displaced, families like Keisha's. How many other children would lose their homes because of his greed? How many other single mothers would struggle to find affordable places to live? The phone on his desk buzzed. Jennifer calling back. Mr. Wellington, I found an address for Keisha Johnson. She lives with a foster family now on the South Side. Angela Johnson passed away 4 months ago. I'm so sorry, sir. For months. Angela had been gone for 4 months, and Keisha had been living with strangers. His daughter had been living with strangers while he bought and sold buildings and made more money he didn't need. Get my car ready, Marcus said, his voice rough with emotion. The drive to the South Side took 45 minutes through heavy traffic, but to Marcus it felt like an eternity. His driver, James, kept glancing at him in the rearview mirror with concern. In 15 years of service, James had never seen his boss leave the office in the middle of the day like this. Marcus sat in the back of the town car, staring at the photograph of Angela, trying to memorize every detail of her face. The neighborhood where Keisha lived was nothing like Marcus's world of penthouses and country clubs. Small houses lined the streets, many needing paint and repairs. Chain-link fences separated tiny yards. Kids played basketball on cracked driveways. People sat on porches, watching the expensive car roll slowly down their street with suspicious eyes. This is the address, sir, James said, pulling up in front of a modest brick house with a sagging porch and overgrown lawn. Marcus sat frozen in his seat. What was he going to say? How do you introduce yourself to the daughter you never knew existed? How do you apologize for 16 years of absence? The words, I'm sorry, seemed pathetically inadequate. Should I wait here, Mr. Wellington? James asked. Yes, Marcus said, finally, opening the door. This might take a while. He walked up the cracked concrete path to the front door, his Italian leather shoes looking absurdly out of place. Before he could knock, the door swung open. A heavy-set black woman in her 50s stood there, arms crossed, looking at him with open hostility. I know who you are, she said. Keisha told me you might come. I'm Patricia Brooks. I've been fostering Keisha since her mama passed. Mrs. Brooks, you got some nerve showing up here. Patricia interrupted, her voice hard. That girl's been through hell these past months. Lost her mama, got put in the system, had to leave her school and her friends. And where were you? Living in your fancy tower, not giving a damn. Marcus felt the words like physical blows, but he didn't defend himself. Everything she said was true. I didn't know, he said quietly. I swear to you, I didn't know about Keisha until this morning. Patricia's expression softened slightly, but only slightly. Angela tried to tell you. She tried for years. I know. I read her letter. Mrs. Brooks, I can't change the past. I can't take back the years I wasn't there. But I'm here now. I want to make things right. I want to know my daughter. Want to know her? Patricia scoffed. You can't just walk in here with your expensive suit and your fancy car and expect that girl to accept you. You're a stranger to her. Worse than a stranger, you're the father who abandoned her. I understand that. But I'm asking you to give me a chance. Please, let me talk to her. Patricia studied him for a long moment, her eyes searching his face for something. Whatever she saw must have satisfied her because she stepped aside. She's in her room. Upstairs, second door on the right. But, Mr. Wellington, you hurt that girl again, and money won't protect you from me. You understand? Yes, ma'am, Marcus said, meaning it. The inside of the house was clean but worn. The furniture was old but well-maintained. Pictures of children covered the walls, Patricia's foster kids over the years, Marcus realized. In the corner, he spotted a photograph of Keisha and Angela together, both smiling at the camera. His heart ached at the sight. He climbed the narrow stairs, his hand trembling on the banister. At the second door, he paused, gathering his courage. Then he knocked softly. Come in, Keisha's voice called. Marcus opened the door. The room was small, with barely enough space for a twin bed, a desk, and a dresser. Keisha sat at the desk, homework spread out in front of her. She didn't turn around when he entered. I wasn't sure you'd come, she said, still facing away from him. I came as soon as I could, Marcus replied, standing awkwardly in the doorway. You want to sit down? There's nowhere to sit except the bed. Marcus sat on the edge of the bed, feeling large and out of place in this tiny room. Finally, Keisha turned to face him. In the office earlier, he hadn't really looked at her. Now he did. She did have his eyes, the same dark brown, the same shape. She had Angela's nose and mouth, but the combination of their features had created someone uniquely beautiful. His daughter. I guess you read Mama's letter, Keisha said. Yes. Keisha, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry about your mother. I'm sorry I wasn't there. I'm sorry for everything. Keisha's expression remained neutral, guarded. Mama told me not to hate you. She said you were young and scared when she got pregnant. She said your family probably kept her messages from you. She always made excuses for you. I don't deserve her kindness. Or yours. No, you don't, Keisha agreed bluntly. But Mama asked me to give you a chance. That's why I came to your office today. Why I gave you that letter. Why did you come with the housing authority people? Marcus asked. A small smile crossed Keisha's face. I volunteer with a youth advocacy group. When I heard they had a meeting scheduled with Marcus Wellington about the South Harper project, I convinced them to let me come. I wanted to see you in person before I gave you the letter. I wanted to see what kind of man you were. And what did you see? Keisha's smile faded. I saw a man who didn't care about people like me and Mama. A man who only cared about money and profit. A man who could make decisions that would hurt hundreds of families and not lose a minute of sleep over it. Her words stung because they were accurate. You're right. That's exactly who I've been. But, Keisha, I want to change. I want to be better. I want to be the father your mother asked me to be. Do you? Keisha challenged. Or do you just feel guilty? Because guilt fades. Guilt goes away. What happens when you stop feeling guilty? Do you go back to your penthouse and forget about me again? Marcus moved to kneel in front of her chair, so they were at eye level. I don't know how to prove this to you yet, but I swear I'm not going to leave. I'm not going to disappear. You're my daughter. That means something. That changes everything. Tears welled up in Keisha's eyes, though she blinked them back stubbornly. Do you know what it was like watching Mama die? She was so strong, so brave. She kept telling me everything would be okay, that I'd be okay. But I could see she was scared. Scared of leaving me alone. And the worst part was knowing that she'd reached out to you, tried to tell you about me for years, and you never responded. She died still hoping you'd care enough to help me. God, Keisha, Marcus's voice broke. If I had known, if I had received even one of her messages, I would have been there. I swear to you. Would you? Keisha asked. Because Mama said your family didn't want someone like her in your life. A black girl from the wrong side of town. Would you have chosen us over your money and your family? The question hung in the air between them. Marcus wanted to say yes immediately, but Keisha deserved honesty. I don't know what I would have done 27 years ago. I was weak then. I let my father control my life. I was too concerned with status and appearances. But I'm not that person anymore. And even if I was, you're my daughter. That transcends everything else. Keisha stood and walked to her dresser, pulling open the top drawer. She took out a worn photo album and handed it to Marcus. Mama kept this for you. She said if you ever came looking for us, she wanted you to see it. With shaking hands, Marcus opened the album. The first page showed a very pregnant Angela, smiling at the camera despite the tiredness in her eyes. The next pages chronicled Keisha's life, her birth, her first smile, her first steps, birthday parties with homemade cakes, first day of school pictures, Christmas mornings, science fair projects, school plays, a whole life documented in faded photographs. Marcus turned each page, tears flowing freely now. Here was everything he had missed, everything he could never get back. Keisha as a baby, as a toddler, as a little girl with pigtails and a gap-toothed smile. Keisha holding a trophy for a spelling bee. Keisha in a soccer uniform. Keisha at middle school graduation. And in many of the photos, Angela was there too. Looking tired but happy. Older than the girl he remembered, but still beautiful. Always with her arm around Keisha. Always smiling with pride at her daughter. She loved you so much, Marcus whispered. I can see it in every picture. She was the best mom in the world, Keisha said, her voice thick with emotion. We didn't have a lot of money. We lived in a small apartment. Sometimes she worked 2 jobs to make ends meet. But we were happy. She made sure I was happy. She made sure I knew I was loved. She sounds like an incredible woman. She was. And you missed it all. You missed knowing her as an adult. You missed watching me grow up. You miss being part of our family. Keisha's voice rose with anger and pain. Do you have any idea how many times I asked about you? How many Father's Day cards I made at school that had nowhere to go? How many times I wondered if you even knew I existed? If you would have cared if you did. Marcus closed the photo album carefully, as if it were a sacred text. I can't change the past, Keisha. I can't give you back those years. But I'm here now. And I want to be in your life. If you'll let me. However, you'll let me. I don't expect you to call me Dad or to forgive me right away. But, please, give me a chance to prove that I can be someone you're proud of. Keisha wiped her eyes roughly with the back of her hand. Mama said you were good at business. That you built some big company from nothing. My father started the company, but, yes, I grew it significantly. Then, you're smart. You're successful. You have power and money and influence. Keisha looked directly at him. So here's what I want from you. I don't want your money for myself. I don't need your fancy cars or your fancy house. What I want is for you to use your power to help people like me and Mama. The South Harper development, Mama and I were going to have to move because of it. The rent was going up so high we couldn't afford it. That's why I volunteered with the advocacy group. That's why I came to your office today. Marcus felt ashamed. While he had been planning his development, calculating profit margins, he had been displacing his own daughter. I'll cancel the project. No, Keisha said firmly. Don't cancel it. Change it. Make it something that helps the neighborhood instead of destroying it. Include affordable housing like they asked you to. Create jobs for people who live there. Build a community center. Make it something Mama would be proud of. Consider it done, Marcus said without hesitation. Really? Just like that? You'll lose money. I'll lose some profit margin, yes. But I'll still make money. And, more importantly, I'll do the right thing. You're right, Keisha. I've spent too many years only thinking about profit. Your mother's letter, your presence in my life, it's a wake-up call. I need to do better. Keisha studied him carefully, looking for signs of deception. Mama always said people can change if they want it badly enough. She believed in second chances. That's why she wrote that letter. That's why she asked me to find you. Your mother was a better person than I'll ever be, Marcus said. But I'm going to try. I'm going to try to be worthy of you both. For the first time since he entered the room, Keisha's expression softened. I don't know if I can forgive you yet. I don't know if I can trust you. But I want to try. For Mama. That's all I can ask for. Marcus stood, suddenly exhausted. Can I see you again? Can we talk more? I guess so. But, Mr. Wellington, Marcus. Please, call me Marcus. Keisha nodded slowly. Marcus, then. I need you to understand something. I'm not going to pretend everything is fine. I'm not going to act like we're suddenly a happy family. You hurt Mama. You abandoned us. Even if it wasn't on purpose, even if you didn't know, the result was the same. We were alone when we should have had you. I know. And I will spend the rest of my life trying to make up for that. Keisha pulled out her phone. Give me your number. I'll text you sometimes. We can meet for coffee or something. Take it slow. Marcus recited his number, watching as she programmed it into her phone. His daughter had his phone number. Such a small thing, but it felt monumental. There's something else, Keisha said hesitantly. Mama's medical bills. Even with insurance, there's about $60,000 in debt. The hospital is threatening to sue the estate. I don't have anything to give them, but Mama's name, her reputation, I don't want it destroyed. I'll take care of it, Marcus said immediately. First thing tomorrow morning. And, Keisha, I know you said you don't want money for yourself, but you need to think about college. Your mother wanted you to have opportunities. Let me set up a trust fund for your education. Keisha hesitated, pride warring with practicality on her face. Mama did always say education was the key to everything. She wanted me to go to a good college, to have choices she never had. Then, it's settled. I'll have my lawyers draw up the paperwork. And, Keisha, I know you're living with Mrs. Brooks now, but if you ever want to, if you're ever comfortable with the idea, my home is your home. I have plenty of space. You could have your own room, your own space. I'm good here for now, Keisha said quickly. Patricia is nice. She's been good to me. And I need time to process all of this. To figure out who you are to me. Of course. I understand. I'll be in touch, okay? And if you need anything, anything at all, you call me. Day or night. As Marcus turned to leave, Keisha spoke again. Marcus? Thank you for coming. Thank you for not running away again. I'm not going anywhere, Marcus promised. Not ever again. Downstairs, Patricia was waiting in the living room, her expression unreadable. How did it go? She's willing to give me a chance. That's more than I deserve. Patricia nodded slowly. That girl has a heart like her mother's. Too forgiving for her own good sometimes. But you better mean what you say, Mr. Wellington. That girl has been through enough. I mean every word. Mrs. Brooks, I want to compensate you for taking care of Keisha. Whatever expenses you've had, whatever. Patricia held up her hand. I don't foster for money. I foster because these kids need someone. But if you want to help, make sure Keisha gets what she needs. Make sure she knows she has family now. That's worth more than any check you could write. Marcus nodded, chastened. Yes, ma'am. I'll do that. The drive back to his office felt different than the drive there. Marcus watched the city pass by the window, seeing it with new eyes. Every person he saw could be struggling like Angela had struggled. Every kid playing on the street could be like Keisha, smart, talented, deserving of opportunities, but held back by circumstances beyond their control. Back at the office, Jennifer was waiting anxiously. Mr. Wellington, the board has been calling. They want to know about the South Harper project. The investors are getting nervous about the delays. Schedule a meeting with the board for tomorrow morning, Marcus said. And get the development team together too. We're redesigning the South Harper project from the ground up. Sir, you heard me. I want 40% affordable housing. I want a community center with free programs for kids. I want to hire from the neighborhood for construction and management positions. And I want our profit margin on this one to be minimal. We're building a community, not just another luxury development. Jennifer's eyes widened. Sir, the board works for me, Marcus said firmly. And this is how we're doing it. If any of them have a problem with that, they can resign. The boardroom fell silent when Marcus finished his presentation. 12 faces stared at him across the mahogany table, expressions ranging from confusion to outrage. Thomas Harrington, the oldest board member and Marcus's father's former business partner, was the first to speak. Let me see if I understand correctly, Thomas said, his voice dripping with sarcasm. You want to take our most profitable development project and turn it into a charity operation? 40% affordable housing? A free community center? Hiring locals with no experience? Marcus, have you lost your mind? No, Thomas. I've found it. Marcus remained calm, though his heart was pounding. This project will still be profitable. Just not as profitable as we originally planned. Not as profitable. Rebecca Chun, the CFO, pulled up spreadsheets on her tablet. According to these numbers, we're talking about a 60% reduction in projected profits. Our investors will revolt. The stock price will tank. Our investors care about returns, yes, but they also care about sustainability and social responsibility. This project puts us ahead of the curve on both fronts. We'll get positive press, improved community relations, and tax incentives that will offset some of the reduced revenue. This is about that girl, isn't it? Thomas leaned forward, his eyes narrowed. Your assistant mentioned you took an unexpected trip to the South Side yesterday. Now suddenly, you want to redesign a multi-million-dollar project. What's going on, Marcus? Marcus had known this question would come. He had debated all night about how much to reveal. In the end, he had decided on honesty. These people deserve to know why their CEO was making such a dramatic change. Her name is Keisha Johnson. And, yes, she's the catalyst for this decision. But not in the way you think. Marcus took a deep breath. Keisha is my daughter. I didn't know about her until yesterday. Her mother, Angela, was someone I knew a long time ago. Angela recently passed away, and she left me a letter asking me to take care of Keisha. The room erupted in shocked murmurs. Rebecca's mouth fell open. Thomas looked like he had been slapped. Even the usually unflappable legal counsel, David Morrison, seemed stunned. You have a daughter? Rebecca asked. Marcus, why didn't you tell us? Because I just found out yesterday. I'm still processing it myself. But here's what I know. Keisha and her mother were going to be displaced by our South Harper development. While I was calculating profit margins, I was literally planning to force my own daughter out of her home. That's unacceptable. It's inhumane. And it's not the legacy I want to leave. Thomas scoffed. So you're going to torpedo a major project because of guilt? That's not how business works, Marcus. No. Thomas, I'm going to redesign a major project because it's the right thing to do. And because I believe we can do well by doing good. This company has been focused solely on maximizing profits for too long. We've forgotten that real estate is about people's lives, about communities, about homes. It's time we remembered that. This is emotional decision-making, Thomas argued. You're not thinking clearly. Give yourself time to process this situation with your daughter. Don't make rash business decisions while you're in this state. Marcus stood, placing his hands on the table. I've never been thinking more clearly in my life. For 27 years, I've been operating on autopilot, chasing money and status without stopping to ask why or for whom. My daughter gave me a wake-up call. She showed me what my business practices actually do to real people. And I'm not going to ignore that. The board could vote to override you on this, Thomas warned. The board could try, Marcus said evenly. But I still control 51% of the company. This is happening. The question is whether you're with me or not. I hope you are, because I think this is the future of our company. I think this is how we build something that lasts, something that means more than just numbers on a balance sheet. David Morrison, who had been quiet throughout the exchange, finally spoke. Marcus, I respect what you're trying to do. But we have legal obligations to our shareholders. They expect us to maximize value. How do we justify this to them? We tell them the truth, Marcus said. We tell them we're investing in long-term sustainability rather than short-term gains. We tell them we're building brand value through social responsibility. We tell them we're getting ahead of inevitable regulations on affordable housing. And, most importantly, we tell them we're doing the right thing. If that's not good enough for some shareholders, they can sell their stock. Rebecca was studying her spreadsheets again. If we implement the tax incentive programs Thomas mentioned, and if we can get some grant funding for the community center, the numbers aren't as bad as I initially thought. We'd still see a 25% reduction in profits. But the project would remain viable. Thank you, Rebecca, Marcus said gratefully. Thomas shook his head. I've known you since you were a boy, Marcus. Your father would be rolling in his grave right now. He built this company on hard-nosed business principles, not charity work. My father also taught me that family comes first, Marcus said quietly. I failed at that lesson once. I'm not going to fail again. And, Thomas, with all due respect, my father's generation also believed in redlining and discrimination. Times change. We need to change with them. The meeting continued for another hour, but Marcus could sense the tide turning. Not everyone was on board. Thomas remained vocally opposed, but most of the board members were at least willing to try this new direction. Rebecca worked up revised financial projections that showed the project could work. David outlined a communication strategy for shareholders. Even some of the skeptical members admitted that the positive publicity could be valuable. When the meeting finally ended, Marcus felt exhausted but hopeful. He had expected more resistance, possibly even a vote of no confidence. Instead, he had gotten cautious support and a commitment to make the new vision work. Rebecca caught up with him in the hallway. Marcus, can I ask you something personal? Of course. This daughter of yours, Keisha, are you doing this for her or for you? Marcus considered the question carefully. Both, I think. I'm trying to be the father she deserves. But I'm also trying to be the person I should have been all along. Does that make sense? Rebecca smiled. It does. For what it's worth, I think Angela would be proud of you. The words hit Marcus harder than he expected. I hope so. I hope Keisha will be too, eventually. Over the next few weeks, Marcus threw himself into redesigning the South Harper project with an intensity that surprised even his workaholic staff. He met with community leaders, listened to residents' concerns, and incorporated their feedback into the plans. He hired local architects who understood the neighborhood's character. He established scholarship programs for local students interested in construction and property management. He did everything he could to make the project a model for community-focused development. Throughout this time, he maintained regular contact with Keisha. They met for coffee every Saturday morning at a diner near her school. The conversations were sometimes awkward, sometimes emotional, but always honest. Keisha told him stories about Angela, about their life together, about all the things he had missed. In return, Marcus told her about his own childhood, his regrets, his hopes for their future together. One Saturday, about a month after that first meeting, Keisha brought a school project to the diner. I have to do a presentation on someone who's made a difference in their community. I want to do it on you and the South Harper project. Marcus looked up from his coffee in surprise. Really? Keisha, The project isn't even finished yet, but the impact already is. I've been talking to people in the neighborhood. They can't believe Marcus Wellington is actually listening to them, that he's creating housing they can afford, that he's hiring their kids. You're changing lives, Marcus. That's worth talking about. I'm just trying to do what your mother would have wanted. I know. That's exactly why I want to write about it. Keisha pulled out her notebook. Can I interview you? Ask you some questions about why you're doing this. Of course. For the next hour, Keisha asked him thoughtful, probing questions about his motivations, his business philosophy, and his plans for future projects. Marcus found himself being more honest than he had ever been in any media interview. He talked about his father's influence, both positive and negative. He talked about meeting Angela and falling in love that summer. He talked about his regret at leaving her, at never responding to her attempts to contact him. He talked about reading her final letter and realizing how much he had lost, how much he had thrown away in pursuit of money and status. Do you ever get angry at her? Keisha asked suddenly. Mama, I mean, for not trying harder to reach you? For raising me alone when she could have, I don't know, shown up at your office or something. Marcus shook his head. No, never. Your mother did everything she could. My family, my father, he was very good at keeping people away that he didn't want in our lives. I'm sure he intercepted her messages. I'm sure he made it impossible for her to reach me. If I'm angry at anyone, it's at him and at myself. Mama never said bad things about you, Keisha said softly. Even when I pushed her to, when I was angry about not having a dad, she always said you were a good person who made a mistake. She said people aren't defined by their worst moments. She was too kind, too forgiving. Maybe, or maybe she just understood that life is complicated, that people are complicated. Keisha closed her notebook. I'm still figuring out how I feel about you, Marcus. Some days I'm angry. Some days I'm sad. Some days I'm just confused. But I want you to know that I appreciate what you're doing. Not just with the building project, but with trying to be in my life. It matters. Marcus felt his throat tighten with emotion. That means more to me than you know. As autumn turned to winter, Marcus and Keisha's relationship deepened. She started calling him more often, texting him about her day, sending him pictures of things that reminded her of their conversations. Marcus learned that she loved science, especially biology, that she wanted to be a doctor someday, like the oncologist who had treated her mother, that she was brilliant at math but struggled with English essays, that she had a dry sense of humor very similar to his own, that she was fiercely loyal to her friends and had a strong sense of justice that sometimes got her in trouble at school. Marcus attended one of her science fair presentations and beamed with pride as she explained her project on cancer cell mutations. He took her shopping for winter clothes when Patricia mentioned she had outgrown everything from last year. He helped her study for her driving permit test, marveling at how quickly she was growing up. Small moments, ordinary moments, but to Marcus they were everything. These were the moments he had missed for 16 years. He was determined not to miss any more. One cold December evening, about 3 months after that first meeting, Keisha called him sounding upset. Marcus, can you come pick me up? I'm at the library, and there's been an incident. Marcus was in his car within minutes, his heart racing with worry. When he arrived at the library, he found Keisha sitting on the front steps with a security guard standing nearby. Her face was red and puffy from crying. What happened? Marcus asked, kneeling in front of her. Some girls from school. They were saying things about Mama, about me, calling us welfare queens, and saying Mama died because she was too poor for real health care. Keisha's voice shook with anger and pain. I told them to shut up. Things got heated. The librarian kicked us all out. Marcus felt rage boil inside him. Who are these girls? What are their names? It doesn't matter, Keisha said miserably. They're just stupid. But, Marcus, they're not wrong. Mama did die because we couldn't afford better treatment. She worked so hard. She had insurance, but it wasn't enough. The treatments that might have saved her, they were too expensive. We had to settle for the cheaper options. And now she's gone. Marcus sat down beside her on the cold concrete steps, putting his arm around her shoulders. She didn't pull away. Your mother's death is not your fault or hers. The healthcare system in this country is broken. But, Keisha, your mother received excellent care from doctors who tried everything they could. Sometimes cancer just wins. Sometimes medicine isn't enough, no matter how much money you have. But we'll never know, will we? We'll never know if more money could have saved her. Keisha turned to look at him, tears streaming down her face. Do you know what the worst part is? You could have saved her. If you had known about us, if you had been in our lives, you could have paid for the best treatment, the experimental drugs, everything. Mama might still be alive. The accusation hit Marcus like a physical blow because it was absolutely true. If he had known about Angela, if he had responded to her messages, if he had been a responsible adult instead of a coward, he could have saved her. He had enough money to pay for any treatment, any specialist, any experimental procedure. Angela had died because he hadn't been there, because he had abandoned them. You're right, Marcus said, his voice breaking. You're absolutely right. If I had known, I would have paid for anything, everything. I would have flown Angela to the best cancer centers in the world. I would have hired the best doctors. I would have done whatever it took. And the fact that I didn't, that I couldn't because I didn't know. Keisha, that's going to haunt me for the rest of my life. Keisha sobbed against his shoulder, and Marcus held her while she cried. All the anger, all the grief, all the loss she had been carrying for months came pouring out. The security guard tactfully stepped away, giving them privacy. When Keisha's tears finally subsided, she pulled back and wiped her face. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have said that. It's not your fault. You didn't know. You had every right to say it. It's true. But Mama wouldn't want me to blame you. She wouldn't want me to be angry at you for something you couldn't control. Marcus took Keisha's hands in his. Listen to me. You can be angry at me. You can blame me. You're allowed to have those feelings. Yes, your mother was generous and forgiving, but you don't have to be. You're entitled to your anger. You're entitled to your grief. And I will accept whatever you need to throw at me. Okay. Keisha nodded slowly. Okay. But Marcus, even though I'm angry sometimes, even though I blame you sometimes, I'm also glad you're here now. I'm glad I'm not alone anymore. Does that make sense? Perfect sense. Marcus stood and helped her up. Come on. Let's get you home. And tomorrow, I'm going to talk to your principal about those girls. What they said was bullying, and it's not acceptable. You don't have to do that. Yes, I do. Because that's what fathers do. They protect their daughters. Keisha looked at him for a long moment. Is that what you are now? My father. I'm trying to be. If you'll let me. Okay, Keisha said quietly. You can be my father. But I'm still going to call you Marcus. Dad doesn't feel right yet. Marcus is perfect, he assured her. That night, Marcus couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about what Keisha had said, about how he could have saved Angela. It was true. Undeniably, horrifically true. And there was nothing he could do to change it. Angela was gone. All he could do now was honor her memory by taking care of their daughter. But maybe there was something else he could do. Some way to make sure other families didn't face the same impossible choices that Angela had faced. The next morning, Marcus called an emergency meeting with his legal team. I want to set up a foundation. The Angela Johnson Memorial Foundation. It will provide financial assistance for cancer patients who can't afford experimental treatments or cutting-edge therapies. I'm seeding it with $50 million to start. His lawyers looked at each other in surprise. Sir, that's very generous, but I'm not done. I also want to endow a scholarship program at the University of Chicago Medical School. Full rides for students from underserved communities who want to become oncologists. Another $20 million for that. And I want to fund free cancer screenings in low-income neighborhoods. Early detection saves lives. Let's make sure everyone has access to it, not just people who can afford good insurance. Mr. Wellington, this is going to cost. I don't care what it costs. I have more money than I could spend in 10 lifetimes. It's time I used it for something that matters. Marcus stood and walked to his window, looking out at the city. Angela died because she couldn't afford the care she needed. I can't change that. But I can make sure fewer people die for the same reason. That's what I'm going to do. The foundation launch was scheduled for January, on what would have been Angela's 47th birthday. Marcus invited Keisha to the press conference where he would announce it. At first, she was reluctant to be in the public eye. But when Marcus explained that he wanted to honor her mother's memory publicly, to make sure Angela's story was told, Keisha agreed. The press conference was held at the Wellington Properties headquarters. Reporters filled the room, cameras flashing. Marcus stood at the podium, Keisha beside him, both of them dressed formally for the occasion. For the first time, Marcus was introducing his daughter to the world. Thank you all for coming, Marcus began, his voice steady despite his nerves. I'm here today to announce the creation of the Angela Johnson Memorial Foundation, dedicated to providing cancer treatment assistance to patients who cannot afford it. But before I talk about the foundation, I want to tell you about Angela and about how she changed my life. For the next 20 minutes, Marcus told Angela's story. He told the reporters about meeting her that summer in Cape May, about falling in love, about his cowardice in leaving her, about the daughter he never knew he had, about Angela's courage in raising Keisha alone, in battling cancer, in reaching out to him even as she was dying, about the letter that had forced him to face the consequences of his choices. Angela Johnson was a teacher, a mother, and, by all accounts, an extraordinary woman, Marcus said, his voice thick with emotion. She deserved better than she got from me. She deserved better than what our healthcare system gave her. I can't bring her back. I can't give Keisha her mother back. But I can honor Angela's memory by making sure other families don't suffer the way they did. That's what this foundation is about. Then, Keisha stepped forward to speak. Marcus hadn't known she was planning to say anything. She had told him she just wanted to stand beside him. But now she pulled out a piece of paper and approached the microphone. My name is Keisha Johnson, and Angela Johnson was my mother, she began, her voice clear despite the trembling of her hands. I want to thank Marcus Wellington for creating this foundation in her name. But more than that, I want to thank him for being brave enough to admit his mistakes, for being willing to change, for showing me that it's never too late to do the right thing. She paused, looking at Marcus. When my mama was dying, she told me that people aren't defined by their worst moments. She said everyone deserves a chance at redemption if they're willing to work for it. Marcus is working for it. He's trying to be the father I needed, the partner my mother deserved. And even though I miss my mama every single day, I'm grateful that something good came from her death, that her story might save other people's lives. That's what she would have wanted. By the time Keisha finished speaking, there wasn't a dry eye in the room. Marcus wrapped his arm around her shoulders, and, for the first time, she leaned into him naturally, comfortably. The cameras captured the moment, billionaire and daughter united in grief and hope. The foundation launch made national news. Within days, donations poured in from across the country. Other wealthy individuals were inspired to create similar programs. Medical centers reached out to partner with the foundation. Cancer patients and their families sent letters thanking Marcus and Keisha for giving them hope. But the most meaningful response came from Patricia Brooks, Keisha's foster mother. She called Marcus one evening, her voice gruff with emotion. I've been watching you these past months, Patricia said. Watching how you've been with Keisha. I had my doubts at first, I'll admit. I thought you might be one of those rich folks who wanted a daughter as an accessory. Someone to show off, and then forget about when it wasn't convenient anymore. Patricia, let me finish. I was wrong about you. You've been showing up. Not just physically, but emotionally. You're trying. You're learning. You're changing. That's more than most fathers do. And you didn't even have 16 years of practice. Thank you. That means a lot coming from you. There's something else. Keisha turns 17 in a few months. After that, she's got one more year until she's 18 and ages out of the foster system. I've been thinking, and I've talked to Keisha about this. Maybe it's time she moves in with you. Gets to know you better. Becomes part of your life in a real way, not just Saturday morning coffees. Marcus felt his heart leap. Are you serious? Patricia, I would love that. But only if Keisha wants it. I don't want to pressure her. She wants it. She's scared, but she wants it. That girl needs a father, Marcus. And whether you planned for it or not, that's what you are. 2 weeks later, Marcus found himself helping Keisha pack her belongings in Patricia's house. It didn't take long. Keisha had never accumulated much stuff. Most of what she owned fit in 3 boxes and 2 suitcases. Are you sure about this? Keisha asked as they loaded the last box into Marcus's car. Your place is so fancy. I don't want to break anything expensive. Marcus laughed. Keisha, you're not going to break anything. And even if you did, it's just stuff. You're more important than any possession I own. Patricia stood on the porch, watching them with tears in her eyes. You call me if you need anything, baby girl. And, Marcus, you take good care of her. I will. I promise. The drive to Marcus's penthouse felt surreal. Keisha stared out the window at the changing neighborhoods, watching the houses get bigger and The streets get cleaner as they move from the south side to the downtown high-rises. When they arrived at Marcus's building, the doorman greeted them warmly. "Welcome home, Miss Johnson. We're happy to have you." In the elevator, Keisha's nervousness was palpable. Marcus squeezed her hand reassuringly. "You're going to love your room. I had it completely redone." When Marcus opened the door to what was now Keisha's bedroom, she gasped. The room was twice the size of Patricia's entire living room. There was a queen-size bed with a comfortable reading chair beside it, a huge desk with a brand-new laptop, and all the school supplies she could need. Bookshelves waiting to be filled, a private bathroom, and, on the walls, Marcus had hung blown-up photographs from Angela's photo album, pictures of Keisha and her mother throughout the years. "You kept the photos," Keisha said softly, walking to the wall and touching one of the images of her mother. "Of course. She's part of this home, too. She always will be." Keisha turned to Marcus, tears streaming down her face. But this time they weren't tears of grief or anger. They were tears of relief, of hope, of finally feeling like she had found a place where she belonged. "Thank you," she whispered, "for everything, for not running away, for trying, for caring." Marcus pulled her into a hug, and Keisha didn't pull away. "Thank you for giving me a chance I didn't deserve, for letting me be your father, for being patient with me while I figure out how to do this." They stood like that for a long time, father and daughter, holding on to each other and the second chance they had both been given. Outside the window, the city stretched out below them, full of people with their own stories of loss and redemption, of mistakes and forgiveness, of families found and families lost and families rebuilt. That night, as Marcus lay in bed unable to sleep, he thought about Angela's letter. She had written that he was in big trouble if he didn't read it, didn't act on it. She had been right. But it was the best trouble he'd ever been in. The kind of trouble that had saved him from a life of empty success and hollow achievement. The kind of trouble that had given him a daughter and a purpose and a chance to finally be the man he should have been all along. Somewhere, Marcus hoped, Angela was watching, hoping she could see that her letter had worked, that her final gift to both him and Keisha had been exactly what they needed, that in dying, she had somehow brought them all back to life. That evening, Marcus sat alone in his penthouse, looking at Angela's photo album. He had asked Keisha if he could borrow it, and she had agreed reluctantly. Now he studied every picture, trying to memorize his daughter's face at every age, trying to imagine what her voice had sounded like as a child, what her laugh had sounded like, what stories Angela had told her at bedtime. His phone buzzed with a text. It was from an unknown number. "Hi, it's Keisha. Just wanted to say thanks again for coming today. Mama would be happy you finally know about me. Good night." Marcus stared at the message, feeling a warmth spread through his chest. Such a simple text, but it meant everything. He typed back carefully. "Thank you for giving me a chance. I won't let you down. Good night, Keisha." As he set down his phone, Marcus looked around his penthouse. The expensive furniture, the modern art on the walls, the view that had once seemed so important. It all felt empty now. Hollow. He had spent decades building a fortune, accumulating possessions, chasing success. But what had he really accomplished? He had no family, no one to share his life with, no legacy beyond buildings with his name on them. But now he had Keisha, a daughter who challenged him, who saw through his pretenses, who demanded he be better than he had been. It was terrifying and exhilarating at the same time. He had no idea how to be a father, especially to a teenager who had grown up without him. But he was going to learn. He was going to try, because Angela had given him a second chance, and he wasn't going to waste it. He was going to make sure Keisha knew she had a father. He was going to make sure she had every opportunity in the world. And he was going to make sure his business practices reflected the values Angela had tried to teach him all those years ago: compassion, community, caring for others. The next morning would bring difficult conversations with the board, with investors, with business partners who wouldn't understand his sudden change of heart. But Marcus didn't care. For the first time in decades, he was doing something that mattered, something that his daughter could be proud of, something that honored the memory of the woman he had loved and lost. Keisha had been right when she gave him that envelope. He was in big trouble, but it was the best kind of trouble. The kind that forces you to become the person you were always meant to be. I need to go somewhere. Where to, sir? Marcus looked at the address Jennifer had sent. It was in the neighborhood where his South Harper development would be built. Of course it was. The universe had a twisted sense of irony. The South Side, he said. I'm going to the South Side. As Marcus walked out of his office, past his confused assistant, past the waiting appointments, and the ringing phones, he felt something shift inside him. Fear, yes. Guilt, absolutely. But also something else. Something he hadn't felt in years. Hope. Maybe it wasn't too late. Maybe he could still make things right. Maybe he could still be the father Keisha deserved, even if he had missed the first 16 years of her life. The envelope sat on his desk, Angela's handwriting visible on the scattered pages. A final message from a woman he had loved and lost. A plea from a dying mother to save her daughter. A chance for redemption that Marcus knew he didn't deserve, but was determined to earn. Keisha had said he was in big trouble. She was right. But maybe, just maybe, this was the kind of trouble that could save them both.